Welcome to our channel, ladies and gentlemen. I hope that this video finds you well wherever you are following us from. Thank you very much for tuning in to our show. Ladies and gentlemen, there is an African proverb that says, a hyena cannot shed off its spots. And this proverb simply means that you cannot change your fundamental behavior no matter the circumstances. You cannot change your inherent behavior and characteristics. And I'm saying this because I personally believe that William Ruto cannot change. Our president cannot change no matter the circumstances. A few days ago, our president gave a very flippant apology to the youths who had been abducted, to the youths who lost their colleagues during the demonstrations that took place last year, almost at a time like this, when youths had cautioned parliamentarians to stop a little bit and check on some gray areas that were there in the Finance Bill 2024. But the parliamentarians refused, and they were coerced into passing the Finance Bill 2024, something that led youths to go to the streets. They stormed parliament, and what followed are memories that we really want to forget. They were manhandled, they were kidnapped, tortured, and killed. So recently, the president gave an apology, and his apologies went like, if I have wronged you. The attitude of that apology was he was not convicted that indeed he had wronged the youths. So he was saying, if, despite the fact that before that event he had even acknowledged that youths had been abducted, he had even acknowledged that, many of those who were abducted had been released and they were now spending time with their families. Barely a few days after the apologies, ladies and gentlemen, the government of the day rushed to apprehend illegally a very young, sharp mind, Rose Njeri. Now, Rose Njeri is a 35-year-old Kenyan who is an IT expert and a software developer who also doubles up as a digital activist. In the wake of the ongoing discussion about the Finance Bill 2025, parliamentarians had urged Kenyans to look into the articles with a fine-tooth comb, the articles in the Finance Bill, or rather in the process of budget making. And they wanted Kenyans to read for themselves so that this can demystify any wrong information, any misinformation, to avoid those who propagate a lot of propaganda about the Finance Bill 2025. Because our Kenyan youths really enjoy the use of digital space, they have decided to discuss part of the bills using the social media. So Rose Njeri developed a software where people could easily, look at the finance bill, the areas that she thought were not good for Kenyans. We are told that William Ruto has tried as much as he can to avoid taxes compared to the Finance Bill 2024 that led people to the street. However, Njeri says that is not enough, and she's taking issues with some two areas. One, Njeri says that there are amendments that will lead to high cost of living. And she's saying that despite the fact that the government of the day has avoided some obvious taxes, there are articles that will obviously lead to the high cost of living, and therefore it is like robbing Tom to enrich Peter. The other thing that Njeri takes issues with is the deliberate proposal to amend the tax procedures to allow the Kenya Revenue Authority to access personal data without a court order. And she says that will infringe into our rights, the Kenyan rights, It will undermine the privacy right. This is what Njeri says in conclusion about the bill after highlighting the areas. She says, I call for the withdrawal of this bill as it is made in bad faith, ignorant to the current economic needs and political wills of the people of Kenya, will entrench the abuse of power by the revenue authorities, in light of the fact that they're trying to amend this bill so that the Kenya Revenue Authority can access your personal data without a court order. They will simply wake up and check your personal data. So this led to the illegal apprehension or abduction of Rose Njeri, and the police did it deliberately on a Friday, knowing very well that Saturday was a weekend, Sunday was going to be a weekend, come holiday, and therefore this holiday will be pushed forward to Monday. So she could not be arraigned in court. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, 4 days, a young lady who did nothing but to enlighten Kenyans about the finance bill in accordance to the request by parliamentarians. She was made to spend time in a police cell. She was picked from her South B home or residential place, and she was taken to Pangani police station. That was not enough. This young lady, who was only but enlightening Kenyans, was denied a bail. The Law Society of Kenya tried, but they could not get to help to give legal assistance to Njeri, something that really elicited very sharp and bitter reaction.
This is extremely painful, extremely careless, extremely unfortunate for this country. Njeri simply did what is in the law. The Parliament of Kenya has asked for public participation. Just said, please tell us, let us know what is good and bad in this bill before we pass it. And she, being a young person, what she simply did is to create a tool where Kenyans can engage on the issues on finance bill. Simple. There's no big difference with what happened last year, only that this time round, because everything is digital, people can just log in and say what they want to feel about it, and then collect and put it public for discussion.
And this is why I'm telling you that a hyena cannot shed off its spots very easily. William Ruto, while being sworn in as the president of the country, swore and promised to protect the dignity of Kenyans. Last year, Kenyans went to the street because their voices were not heard. This so-called public participation to the government is a mere formality because Kenyans spoke, but their views were not heard, or they were heard and ignored. The views were passing from the right ear all the way through the left ear. No one took seriously what they had in mind. So our president has really forgotten that for the first time he stood alone after Gen Z's stormed parliament, and he said, I'm not going to sign this bill because the pressure was too high. The president never appointed we call them the CAS, CSs, people like Millicent Omanga, Kidero. Those positions were abolished. And the president told us that he was going to be very careful moving forward on how to use taxpayers' money. Today, because he has gotten into a handshake, he has forgotten everything, selective amnesia. And now they have started. You see, many a times the government will start this war. Like someone who has just created a digital platform where people give their voice. And by the way, let me tell you, they are saying, one of the charges read, that Njeri was charged with unauthorized interference with computer system. And they are claiming that that platform jammed the clerk of the National Assembly system, therefore rendering it, unable to continue with its functions because Kenyans were giving their views, and Kenyans are really mad about the finance bill. Once bitten, twice shy. So they are claiming that as a result of the huge amount of emails that were getting in, it interfered with the clerk of the National Assembly system. I mean, how can that be? Then they denied her bail. I was explaining to you that many a times the president, the government of the day, the security apparatus will begin a war that later they regret. For example, you've started by arresting someone who is just but highlighting. Even if she's saying something that you don't like, you don't apprehend, because you are triggering, the anger of many people. You are simply showing us that you are ready to coerce this down our throats. Because I thought you had explained, you had requested Kenyans to familiarize themselves with this Finance Bill 2025, to know the details, to tell you which areas they think are not good, areas that they feel improvements can be done. Instead of arresting Njeri, why don't you just call her? You can even call her on board and ask, because we have parliamentary committees, the Parliamentary Committee on Budget. You simply ask, what don't you like about this? And Kenyans will say, okay, this is the reason. You also explain why you think it is good for us. As a matter of fact, when the finance bill was going through the committees, do you remember that the committee on education just detected that there was the exam money had been removed, so that during examination process parents would chip in? Of course, that has been corrected as a result of the noise that the committee, the parliamentary committee, made a lot of noise. So there are loopholes that can only be detected when Kenyans make noise. Instead of apprehending someone, call people on board. That is the meaning of public participation. Public participation is not a formality where you have decided that this is what we are going to do. You have decided that we are going to impeach Rigathi, but then you're still telling us, can you get the views of the people under the guise of public participation? Because the last time I checked, this is a government. It should be a government of the people, for the people, by the people. But our government is a government of the executive, by the executive, for the executive. Whatever the executive branch of the government wishes is the command of all the other people. Now, ladies and gentlemen, in light of what has happened, David Maraga was in court, and he was saying that instead of apprehending such a lady with the courage and the effort that she has, this lady needs to be applauded for a job well done.
The entire public who may wish to get electronic copies to know what is in the bill. Instead of being charged, in our view, she should be applauded for having done the work of Parliament or the Parliamentary Committee and the institutions which are there to receive views. So you're not a defective judge like this one is a worrying trend. Why do I say it's a worrying trend? Because the police will arrest, keep somebody in custody for 3-4 days, like Njeri has been kept, bring her to court, and she's taken through the motions, and at the end of the day, that charge is dismissed. She would have suffered immensely. This is what we are asking the court to stop, this abuse of court process.
I want us very quickly to conclude and make certain conclusions in light of what the government of the day is doing. Number one, we've said that this government is suffering from selective amnesia. They forget, like our thug forgets very fast. They never learn. and they believe that it should be their way or the highway. They do not have the true meaning of public participation. Now, they want to intimidate and to create fear so that anyone who would wish to oppose any article in this proposed Finance Bill 2025 will say no, afadhali ni nyamaze. Because if you have arrested a lady bila kosa on a Friday just because she was highlighting certain articles, then you want to create fear. Remember, when they tried to create fear in the Finance Bill 2024, they later regretted. I remember people like Kimani Chungwa were telling us, ati mimi naogopa Mungu, ujimoto na umeme peke yake. But when the youth stormed parliament, he was the first one to flee. So this is meant, obviously, to create fear. But have you realized that the more you create fear, the more people get carried? There's a member of parliament we highlighted on this channel who stood when parliamentarians decided to waste their time discussing Rigathi, and he told them, no, you cannot be discussing someone who is not here. We are wasting our golden opportunity. We should be discussing things that affect Kenyans. That was our hero. But I remember he told the parliamentarians, especially the majority leader Kimani Chungwa and minority leader, his counterpart, Junet Mohammed, that you can silence the messenger, but you cannot silence the message. An idea whose time has come cannot be blocked. So you can arrest Njeri, but I can assure you there are very many Njeris outside there. That has been the order of things. Even when people are fighting for liberation from the colonial masters, even when people are fighting for the second liberation, fighting for multi-party democracy, people were killed, but you kill one, another sprouts. So let them not think that by intimidating, apprehending, and persecuting people like Njeri would muzzle people. No. As a matter of fact, these youths are determined. So let them not try to interfere. Number two, it shows that they are ready to force this down our throats. Whether you like it or not, they have decided. And they will be telling you, round hii tumepunguza ushuru. But then people are saying, thank you, kama umepunguza ushuru. However, can we look at these other articles that we feel will raise or the high cost of living? If you listened and reduced taxes, you can also listen and remove or improve or amend the articles, those that can increase that will increase the high cost of living. They are ready and determined to force it down our throat, whether you like it or not. Like I said, it is either their way or the highway. You're not allowed to talk. Even if you talk, they are determined to do it. Number two, this is tantamount to abuse of power. You use the security apparatus to apprehend people on a Friday. You want them to spend a weekend because you want them to go through mental torture. You want them to start regretting when they're in that cell. So why did I begin this? Afadhali niachane nayo. Abuse of power. Security apparatus are paid and maintained by taxpayers' money. So the people we pay to protect us are the people who apprehend us. And I find it very, very difficult to imagine, that even the security guys are suffering. So when people fight for these rights, their rights are also included. But then, lazima ulinde unga. See, there's nothing they can do unless you want them to resign. But it amounts to abuse of power. The same thing that Ruto had complained about during the second era of Uhuru Kenyatta. In their last term, Ruto complained that those who had dissenting views, who were associated with him as the deputy president, were being persecuted. People like Gachagua then were saying that there were trumped-up charges and the DCI was being used, that office was being used to intimidate them because they had aligned to Ruto's political ideologies. Ruto promised that they would not use the police against their competitors or opponents, but this is exactly what they are doing. As I told you, this is selective amnesia. They forget so fast. The last one, the government is intolerant to dissenting views. And I repeat, a hyena cannot shed off its spots. Apologies just a few days ago, then you continue apprehending people. You tell people that you will not, Kenyans will not be abducted. You pretend that you will listen to the people. Then you go ahead and abduct or, arrest them. Why? They do not want anyone asking questions, anyone pointing, to some weaknesses in the finance bill. This is why I'm telling you that these attempts will backfire. If you see people like the former CJ Maraga, Faith of the Law Society of Kenya, you see Haminwa, Kalonzo was there, the whole opposition, I can assure you that you cannot defeat that mighty power of the people. And the war has just started. It is a mistake to begin arresting people. Maybe they want to test if we arrest Njeri, what will happen? But sometimes you do an experiment that the result comes out in a manner that you don't like. Ladies and gentlemen, let us read the finance bill. Let us give our opinion. Let us not leave it to the parliamentarians, because parliamentarians have been pocketed. I'm saying that because we've seen that they never go against the executive. Now it's even worse than it was in last year, because now the broad-based government is intact. That is why you saw people celebrating in Homa Bay. That was to show you that we will support this bill. So we need to read and tell them areas that we don't want so that they can improve. I don't know what you think, but that is my take. If you have watched to this level, thank you very much. Kindly subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell. Don't go without liking and sharing our videos. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.